All right, guys, just in case you missed it, we just got live on YouTube. It's Tuesday night, and that means the Chevy and Nasty show, the ride with Chevy and Nasty. But as you guys can see, Nasty's running solo right now. Chevy had a chance to get back to Montreal. He was going to help out his sister, and back in the Christmas, they were going through a difficult time, and he was helping her, get things in order. They're selling a house, and he's doing what he could to help out. And he planned his flight to come back early here on Tuesday night so that he could make sure he was on the air with us. But you guys know the state of air travel in Canada these days is far, far from a given. So last I heard, Chevy is just hoping that his bag made it. It didn't make the first carousel. He's waiting on the second carousel to see if it came. And with any luck, Chevy's going to be joining us here in a little bit. So again, guys, thanks so much for joining it. It might just be the Nasty show tonight. We'll see what happens, but I appreciate all of you guys who have joined us already. Jamin, I see a showtime. Bruno, thank you for joining. The Rubio Method, Rob Evans, and Craig Hannum. Time for some poutine. You better believe it. And with Chevy in Montreal, that's the birthplace for a couple of our American followers here. Montreal and Quebec in general is the birthplace of poutine. And I know, Rubio, in the past, you've tried it. You've said it's okay. It's not your thing. But I think Chev's going to be, if he does join us tonight, he's going to be telling us some stories of some great poutine, I hope, that he had while he was in Montreal. Jamin jumps in saying burnt ends. Yeah, buddy, burnt ends. For those of you guys that haven't had burnt ends before, basically, you all know what brisket is. And brisket is when that front muscle of the cow. If you cut it up and cooked it as steaks, it's garbage. It's got sinew. It's got all this connective tissue. But if you slow roast it or you slow smoke it for, 10, 12, longest one I ever did was 22 hours. And it comes out melt in your mouth good. And then Jamin, when you say burnt ends, Jamin's got this technique where he takes that one part of the muscle that has all the fat, and he cubes it up, and he adds this like homemade, I think it's Dr. Pepper barbecue sauce that he makes, and he throws it back in the smoker for another couple of hours until it becomes melt in your mouth meat candy. And Rubio, I'll tell you what, if you're not a fan of poutine, you've got to, next time you're in Calgary, try out Jamin's burnt ends, because I'm telling you what, they are to die for. But with that, so Chev has been in contact. He's texting me from the plane. I don't know if he got the Wi-Fi thing or he's just disregarding air regulations. But he did send us a poetry. And just to make sure that Chev feels like he was a part of tonight's show, you know what? I think it's only fitting that we go on with the poetry. The show must go on. The 300-pound poetry must go on. And so, Chev, if you're out there, if you're watching, this is for you. It's that time, that usual Tuesday night. We're still on the air, despite Chevy's late flight. And that Cinderella story had an ending quite bitter. Oilers ran into the Panthers and stepped right in the kitty litter. It dashed any hopes of Canada's Stanley Cup drought ending, and although he won the Conn Smythe, McDavid legendary status is still pending. So no Canada's hopes on some other team's shoulders, the weight of the burden as heavy as Rocky Mountain boulders. The Alouettes continue at a masterful pace, with the Rough Riders keeping up, though it's still early in the race. But what has us perplexed is the Bombers fall from grace. In most CFL power rankings, they're listed in last place. Jamin, last place. It's a ragtag edition of your Tuesday night ride. We said we'd be there, and you know that we haven't lied. So, yeah, that's it, guys. The show must go on. I don't know. I'm hoping Chevy's going to join us here in any second. Jamin's giving out some more of his barbecue recipes, Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. That's a good fit for those burnt ends if you can't do your own sauce in the night. But I'll tell you what, speaking of burnt ends, I can't help but feel bitter as a Oilers fan, somebody that really got behind the Oilers. Now, to those of you that are like true diehard Oilers fans that follow them for the last 50 years, I got to admit that I'm that guy that, when I was a kid, I grew up in northern Saskatchewan. The closest NHL team was the Edmonton Oilers. And so, I don't know, is that bandwagon? Does that make me a bandwagon fan to really jump on it? Or am I just coming through and seeing the light? And speaking of seeing the light, Chevy joins us from the back of his chartered limousine.
Yeah, back in the Kia Sedona with the boys here. There's Kyle in the back. Kyle, you hiding?
Oh, hey, Kyle.
Pick me up. Yeah, and there's Brett in the front. Brett, say what's up. Yeah, he's hiding. And Luke's driving. There's my driver. So, yeah, I just landed. The plane was 2 hours late. And
wow.
It feels like it was 2 hours late. And I just got my bags. And you know what? You did a great job on the poem. I checked in before I checked in.
Dude, that's the least I could do, because it's sort of the worst nightmare, right? I know you planned your flight in order so that you could be back. You could have flown back in the morning, but you're like, no, the show must go on. The ride must continue. And it meant a lot to you to get back on the air tonight. But I was, honestly, Chev, for those of you that don't know, I know, hey, and AC's on AC Sports Live. Good example. He does his show live by himself, produces it, does it himself every week in and week out. He's got an amazing show out of LA. But when you're used to being a co-host, going solo on the air is a little bit scary. And right now, when I see Chevy's iPhone dropping out, I get a little bit nervous again. So hopefully, Chev, you're still able to continue.
Oh, shit.
No, I hear you. So watch your language. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I tried to see if I could see the comments, but I got to get back in the app here. How do
leave the comments to me. You're just going to have to listen to me. But guys, I'll tell you what. To all of our Canadian go ahead.
I was going to say this is the first time I'm doing this from the phone. When we do our show, we're always in the studio. But I feel like, watching the Pat McAfee show, usually when Aaron Rodgers is on, he's like in the forest or he's on a mountain or he's somewhere exotic. Well, I'm just in a minute. Done. We're getting it.
There you go.
Did you hear any of that?
Yeah, I heard all of it. You cut out one time. So actually the signal's pretty good. The other thing, you bring up Pat McAfee, but even Barn Burners with Rhett Warner, he's always joining from someplace other than the studio with a handheld microphone. And I guess, if you want to get a raw stripped down version of the Ride with Chevy and Nasty, this is what you guys are going to get tonight. But I thought it was really important. We really wanted to get on tonight because I feel collectively, and this isn't true for everyone in Calgary, and I get that, right? But as a nation, I think there's a little bit of mourning going on today because we thought finally there was a chance, a team of destiny, an Edmonton Oilers team that hasn't looked this promising since, the early to late 80s when they had those fantastic runs with Gretzky, Curry, Messier, Tikkanen, Grant Fuhr, Paul Coffey, Craig Simpson. I mean, the list goes on. I can probably name more guys from that roster than I can name from some of my CFL rosters I played on early in my career, right? Just because it was so legendary. But, last night was a real tough loss for anybody, whether you're an Oilers fan or just wanting it to come back to Calgary or come back to Canada or for the Oilers to win the Cup. Shep, Montreal, what set the stage? Was the Stanley Cup Finals a thing in Montreal, or is it sort of the thing where, hey, the Habs aren't in, season's over?
You know what? There was definitely eyes on the Stanley Cup. I wore my Oilers jersey or T-shirt around Montreal, and people were really all in for the game. But right now, Montreal's attention is super divided. Team Canada playing in the CONCACAF tournament was a big draw that day. Italy playing that day against, I believe it was Croatia or Slovakia in the Euro was a big draw. So the city's attention was divided. Like where I live or where I grew up, you'd find more Italia flags than you would find any Montreal Canadian or Oilers flags. But there was definitely interest in the game. I would say that everyone was pulling for the Oilers to win out there. For the Canadian thing, I think Calgary was the unique Canadian city, and from our perspective, very unique in that we had a whole city pulling against a Canadian team. I found that my chat groups with my ball hockey guys, when everyone saw my Instagram feed with an Oilers jersey, I think I got a lot of hate mail. I got a ton of hate mail.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, do you have a problem with that though? For me, I have room for in my heart that just because it's a Canadian team, you don't have to cheer for them, right? But I'm kind of sensing a little bit of bitterness out of you, talking about Calgary not cheering for the Oilers. Is that okay for a bitter rival to not get behind the cause?
You know what? I get it. I totally get it because it is a bitter rival. I could never cheer for the Boston Bruins.
I was just going to ask you that, right? Because that's your rival.
I could never cheer for the Boston Bruins. However, is someone cleaning in the background? But I could never cheer for the Boston Bruins. But that being said, this is a Canadian team. I always find when you're representing Canada, it should mean a little bit more. You should be able to put it aside. It's a patriotic thing, but I get it. It's hard. I get it's hard for the. There you go.
Yeah, somebody was cleaning in the background, as she should, right? Amanda Napastrick. Oh God, I'm gonna get it for that.
But what I'm saying is I get it that they don't go for it, but for me, my loyalties for Canada supersede anything. But I get it. But you know what I have a hard time is the hate for the Oilers is also based on the fact that they were so successful. And it's not because of the rivalry, but it's more like, oh my God, if they win again, so hanging on things like, it's the greatest trade the Flames ever made was getting rid of Tkachuk and Sam Bennett to Florida. No, it wasn't. Or finding solace in the fact that Tkachuk said that he was doing it for his Calgary fans. You know what? He should have stayed in Calgary for his Calgary fans. That's what he should have done. He shouldn't have left 2 years ago. So I don't like that. I just don't like. I don't like these moral victories that everyone's claiming that aren't going for the Oilers. For me personally, if it was any Canadian team, even the Vancouver Canucks, even the Maple Leafs. Think about this. I used to love the Maple Leafs when they played in the West and they never played the Habs. But when they sort of, took on the we're Canada's team thing, I stopped liking the Leafs because they're shoved down our throat. But even if the Maple Leafs were playing an American team for the Stanley Cup, I think I could put it aside in a situation like it was this week. That was an intense series. And, went the distance. It was exciting. And if it was the Maple Leafs, I would have pulled for them, even though I'm not the biggest Maple Leafs fan these days. You know what I mean?
And that's interesting because, I've talked to a few guys, Jamin D included. Thanks for joining us tonight, Jamin. We're talking a little bit where he was saying one of his he got a little bit of relief out of the fact that, Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, Reinhardt, whose dad was a long Flame years ago. So you actually feel good for some of those guys. But when it comes down to the team, like you say, you could find it in your heart to cheer for the Leafs. I've got this thing against me. I don't know if it makes me a small man. I don't think I could get behind the Leafs. I could get behind the Habs for sure. Ottawa, what a great underdog story. The Jets, I would love to see them win. The Flames, of course. In Vancouver, I think I could do it, although I get why guys that are from Calgary hate Vancouver, right? I get it. There's some people here that would never cheer for Vancouver. They hate that team. They hate the fans. But for me with Toronto, it's purely about the fact that the way that the media works in Canada is I feel like we're in the old Soviet Union, and that's propaganda. Everybody should bow down to the Leafs. And that extends to me, like even for me, even when the Raptors were making their run, I wasn't excited about that.
But but the Raptors didn't exist when we were kids. Think about the Blue Jays, right? Like, I wasn't the hugest Blue Jays fan, but I had space in my heart for the Blue Jays growing up because they never played the Expos. So they could, I did have space for them. When they went on their 2-in-a-row run, the Joe Carter year, I thought that was awesome. It was magical. I got behind them. Raptors, I'm not a basketball fan, and the Raptors didn't exist when I was a kid, so it's kind of hard for me to feel that magic. It's just not my thing. But I think for the Leafs, if they went the distance, I would be okay. But I'm the first guy to say they were my last place Canadian team. Like, I didn't want them to win this year. I was happy that Florida won. I was happy that all happened. But then now I wanted Florida to lose for sure. And if the Leafs were there, I think I would have cheered for them. Like if the Leafs were playing the Golden Knights or the San Jose Sharks, would you be going for the San Jose Sharks? No, you wouldn't. You'd go for the Leafs.
I wouldn't. I don't think I would. I'm even reading here right now. And I know you can't see the comments. First off, Craig Adam, big Boston fan. He's a Bruins guy. You guys can have that. We can take that chat offline a little bit later. Trey Smith writes in from Calgary. How about Bennett passing the cup to Tkachuk and the Flame fans going crazy over that too? Now, I don't know if you're like being sarcastic, but yeah, I think Flames fans have a great, have a lot of respect for the guys that came and wore the Flaming C on their jerseys, right? I don't, there's a lot said about Tkachuk when he went, but I think a lot of people are still like, geez, they appreciated the good years that he was here, and they understand why he left a dysfunctional situation. Do we wish he'd stay? Of course we did.
Yeah.
Right? Do we wish he performed better in the playoffs when he was a Flame? Of course we did. But you know what? His game's come around. He's playing well now. Sam Bennett never got a chance. It's awesome to see those guys do well somewhere else.
For sure. But I agree with you. I agree with all that. But at the end of the day, I guess I'm not a diehard Flames fan, so I could care less about that rivalry. I mean, look at our rivalry with the Battle of Alberta. I played for Edmonton and I played for Calgary. I got a soft spot for both teams. When they play each other, I want the Stamps to win, and that's it. But if Edmonton was in the Cup final against Hamilton, I'd want Edmonton to win. I don't know, like, it's tough when you have loyalties, and I have a friend that said, for years. He got it from his uncles and his cousins that lived in Edmonton, and he just can't pull for them. I get that. But I think somewhere deep down, you got to want a Canadian team to win. You know what I read today? I read that an American team won the Grey Cup more recently than a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup.
Isn't that crazy? Wow, that is insane.
The Baltimore Stallions won the Grey Cup in 95.
Yeah.
In 1995 against the Calgary Stampeders, and the last Canadian team to win the Cup was the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. I was in high school. I was 17 years old in 93.
Yeah.
That's the last time. That's, what? If you don't think that.
You were 17 in 93? Yeah, I guess you were. I think I was 19. I was a sophomore in college.
Yeah, so you're a couple years older than me. That's right. So, I mean, that's a long time. That's a long time.
Rubio's jumping in here. USA. And he also brings us this other great point. I'm going to ask you about this, Chev. Rubio writes in and says, what happened to McJesus in the final? Was he too tired, or did they figure him out? Now, Rubio, I don't know how closely you followed that, but in the losing effort, Connor McDavid actually was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy for the most valuable player in the playoffs, right? And it's not common that you see that awarded to the losing team. But he went out there and he had an amazing season. He had 100 assists. I mean, that puts him up in the Gretzky categories. He had some record-setting numbers, not quite beating out some of the ex-great Oilers in this performance, but he still awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy. And Chev, when his name is called, he doesn't even come out.
Yeah. First of all, It is tough because you know what, they gave the trophy to someone on the losing team, and that's always tough. That's always tough because, first of all, you want to pick someone from the winning team. Now, this series had so many ups and downs. When the series started, 3 games in, the clear choice for the Conn Smythe, based on his performance in the first 3 games, would have been Sergei Bobrovsky. Clearly the number one guy. I mean, the saves he was making, he literally neutralized Connor McDavid in 3 games. Then he falls off a cliff. He has a game where he lets in 8 goals or 7 of them. I forgot how many he scored.
He looks like any other goalie lining up against that Oilers lineup.
Looks like any other guy. But then you have Stuart Skinner who stepped up
Yeah.
for the Oilers. And for me, if the Oilers win that game last night, I don't care who scores the game-winning goal. I think Stuart Skinner should have been their choice for the Conn Smythe, just based solely on the fact that he got benched 2 games. If you're taking the whole playoff series, he got benched 2 games, and he kept them in there. He kept them in there throughout the entire series, and he stood on his head for game 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
Big saves early.
And 7. And 7.
Yeah, and 7. But then yesterday, both teams, it was kind of a meh game. There wasn't really much action. Bobrovsky played well, made some good saves, but again, he had those 3 games where he fell off a cliff and looked subpar. You can't give it to him. I feel like Connor McDavid, and again, I wanted him to do well. I love him. I think he's the greatest player in the world. I thought he got it just out of default because there was no one else to give it to.
So. Yeah, I think you might be right on that. Like, I go through the list of guys, and I'm going to go back to the season opener when Gretzky was, or not the season.
Let me make one more point.
Sure.
I think, I'm not saying he underperformed. You got a lot of points, but the whole Edmonton offense was predicated on him being the best player in the world and stepping up, and he didn't get it done yesterday. That was the cement his legacy game. He didn't get it done.
Yeah.
And he kind of didn't show up in certain key points during the series. Now, to the point of not accepting the trophy, no one said, hey, maybe Connor was sitting in the locker room thinking, I don't deserve the trophy. Everyone's calling him a baby. Everyone's saying sportsmanship.
Yeah.
First of all, he wants to win, but maybe he was sitting there thinking, you know what? I didn't do enough, and I don't deserve this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the most hollow feeling ever is coming skating back out there and accepting the trophy. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But when you're talking about, to Rubio's point too, that McDavid disappeared, to me that tells me, and you call McDavid disappeared, no points in the last 2 games. You called this last game kind of uneventful. And to me, what that tells me is I'm going to take Gretzky's lead on this. Going into game 1 of the series, Gretzky was talking about what the guys were going through. Gretzky's had a lot of chances to watch Bobrovsky play. But the number 1 player that impressed him was Alexander Barkov. And he called Barkov the best defensive forward since Brian Trottier of the late of the 70s and 80s, early 80s. And they're talking about the epic battles that Gretzky had against Trottier. And they asked him, so how did you overcome Trottier? And you know what Gretzky said? I didn't score a goal in that series. I didn't score a goal. Now, Wayne Gretzky wasn't a lesser of a player for not having scored a goal. But when you go up against a true defensive forward, and what value that has, we always talk about is usually the goaltender that steals the playoffs, and no doubt Bobrovsky did at times. But you gotta admit, Barkov had to have stood on his head, even though he didn't put up a ton of noteworthy points. He didn't score the game-winning goals. The fact that they could neutralize that line with Draisaitl, with McDavid, that they could take out all of the Oilers' biggest weapons. And I'm telling you, they are legendary weapons. They are 100 assists. Draisaitl is just Hyman breaking all these, all of these records in this performance, and to shut them down in a 1-game matchup or over the course of 3 or 4 games in the series. I'll tell you what, maybe a defensive forward should have been considered for the Conn Smythe too, because he neutralized a star.
Yeah, I would agree. He neutralized 2 stars because although Connor got his points, he also got the bulk of the ice time, so he was going to get the points. The one that got neutralized completely was Draisaitl. He was MIA the whole playoffs. Like, he didn't.
Not the whole playoffs. Just the series. Just the series.
Well, this series for
he was on a tear early on in Vancouver, LA. He was just that little shot from the right slot, dude. He was unstoppable.
but he was nowhere to be found in this series, and more fell on Connor, and more he was neutralized. I thought the Oilers' best game plan was when they didn't shorten their bench and they got the young guys out there like Connor Brown. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Dylan Holloway. That dude, he played he played for a race, because even yesterday, watching the game, how he fought for pucks. He was on his back behind the net one play yesterday. He was sliding behind the net. I think he was on his back, and he still got the puck and slid a pass to the winger in the back corner, which created an opportunity on net. Like, this guy was everywhere. And when they shortened the bench and put more pressure on Connor, it didn't work. It didn't work. And so you might be right. But, if I'm looking at the entire playoff series for Florida, and I'll be totally honest, I wasn't paying attention from the start. Okay, I was paying attention mostly to the West, a little bit the East.
Same here.
But the guy that had been making waves since the first round was Sam Bennett. If you want to give credit to someone, he was a rat all the way through. He represented what Florida hockey was, and those first 3 games against the Oilers, what put them down in the hole is because they tried to play the Florida game, which was basically the tone that was set by Sam Bennett, with the little ratty hits, the little after the whistle stuff that got Edmonton off their game. And to Edmonton's credit, they got back on track. But Sam Bennett had an instant impact in that series and the entire playoffs to get them there. I mean, he neutralized Boston. He neutralized everyone he went against. So my pick would have been Sam Bennett. But again, that series in particular was so back and forth, and I think there was so much indecision as to who was going to win right up until the end of the game, that it was really kind of like nobody stood out in the game that mattered, right? And I think if one guy stood out yesterday, he would have got the Conn Smythe. I don't think Connor stood out, but they gave it to him because, well, he's the greatest player in the world. Why not?
So do you have a problem then with him not skating out on the ice to accept the trophy?
No, listen. First of all, he wants to win a Stanley Cup. Second of all, he's in the other team's building. Third of all, it's their time. You know what? And fourth of all, like, what I really feel is that I think he didn't think he deserved it. If you don't feel you deserve something, you don't want to go out and get it, especially in hostile territory, especially when you already feel like crap. So I don't have anything. He shook hands. If the entire team went in the locker room and didn't shake hands with the other team, I'd have a problem. He stood on the ice. He shook hands with everyone. Yep. He waited for all his teammates to go into the locker room, going out to get a personal trophy when he was there for his team. I have no problems with what he did.
It's kind of like going to getting beer in Edmonton after the big series win in I think it was Vancouver. Or actually, I can't remember what game that was. He should have people that should go out there and collect that stuff for him. I don't blame him at all. I know it's about the fans, and the fans wanted to see him, but honestly, the story was Florida, right? And to come into the locker room and leave your team at that time, I totally get it. I don't look down on that. He handled himself with class. I don't even saying that he didn't deserve the Conn Smythe, which I agree with. He didn't. Is not a slight against him at all. I mean, this guy is. The next great thing. And if anything, I hope that this loss is the one that can really just galvanize that room, right? Yeah. If Draisaitl resigns, which he said he would, we can keep that group together. But 2 things, Chef. First, I'm going to read back here because this is awesome. Bruno writes in, we're talking about Trottier. And Bruno says, Gretzky wasn't stopped only by Trotz. The shutdown line was Trottier, Gillies, Bossy, Potvin, and Morrow. And do you remember those? That was, I was like young. I was like 5 watching that. But I remember every one of those guys. And in fact, calls him the prick. Do you remember the goalie for the Islanders back then?
Billy Smith.
Billy Smith, man. He was like the original. Ron Hextall was the next nasty goalie to come after him. But Billy Smith was so good, and he was so bad. Like, the guy was a living legend. I know the game's changed a lot. It's fun to think back to those years, and kind of like the whole Michael Jordan and LeBron James thing, Kobe. It's rare that you have not can you call it a generational player? It's 30 years. since you've had somebody with that kind of an impact on there, maybe 20 some years, but
Well, I think Crosby is that generational player. I mean, he's so consistent and he's been so awesome.
yeah, and Chevy, I think we might be losing here for a little bit, but we'll see if we can get that back. But guys, that's awesome. Daryl, Bruno, Craig Adam talking about, who was that name that I saw you guys bring up before? Maybe that was Rubio talking about. Who was that? I can't even find it here now. But yeah, it's kind of fun to look back and some of these names that we almost forget. That's why I like having these conversations, right? Who was it that when you were 10 watching that completely took over the league, the team, their favorite guy to watch, the one you would always count on? I know for me, like growing up in North Battleford, yeah, I got to go to a bunch of Oilers games and see those guys. Now it's exciting for me that my boys who don't play hockey, just like me, they don't play hockey either, but recognize some of these names. They recognize some of the biggest rivals that we might face in your Barkovs and Barkovskis. And help me out, Dallas's goalie. What the heck was his name? But my boys are still talking about those guys. So it's kind of neat to see that the NHL is in a good place. There are some serious stars out there, but Chevy's not wrong. I mean, Connor can break every record that he wants, but until he can take that team, which is arguably, a couple of the top lines in the NHL right now, until he can take that to the next level and start turning that into cups, it's meaningless, right? Mario Lemieux did it. Wayne Gretzky did it. Sidney Crosby did it. A long list of guys that were able to do it. And until McDavid is able to do it, he's for sure the most exciting player in hockey. But it just doesn't feel the same. Bruno, good work, Sheldon, for getting the show working tonight. Yeah, we got it working. I think we're on both Facebook and YouTube tonight. It's just a little bit. Look at this. And Chevy's back, and that is not the back of your car.
Yeah, I'm going to get back in the studio here.
Oh, you sound better already.
I'm reconnecting. I'm going to get back in the studio. Try to hook me up.
Yeah, okay, all right. Are you going to stay on your phone, or are you going to jump over the camera?
I'm going to hang up the phone. I didn't even know it reconnected. I'll hang up. I'm joining the studio now.
Yeah, there you go. Bruno hated the Habs, but Guy Lafleur was unstoppable. Yeah, he was unstoppable. He's also one of the most recognizable names. Again, even for me as a kid, watching Guy Lafleur and the flowing locks and the cigarettes smoked on the bench was legendary. Hey, Chev, I'm going to get you to drop out of the of your iPhone because we still have that camera up on screen right now.
I think it's just downloading the last little bit of the percentage of the. Let me see if I can do.
No, I'm not sure if that's important while we're live. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. It cut out. I got to the house and I guess it cut in and out of the signal. Bruno was saying he hated the Canadians. Come on, Bruno.
Yeah, he hated the Canadians, but to follow, like to be there to watch. We're talking about nemesis as well, right? To watch guys like Guy Lafleur and maybe some other guys from that era that are just slipping my mind right now.
Well, Larry Robinson.
That's it. Yeah.
Bob Gainey.
But yeah, totally.
There was tons of guys from that era that were just ridiculously good. Like, Jean Beliveau was a little bit before that time. Guy Lafleur was big. Yvan Cournoyer. I mean, the Habs were stacked. Who
was the goalie back then? Late 70s?
Ken Dryden was, massive. And Ken Dryden would have been, one of the greatest goalies for the Montreal Canadiens, right? He won so many Stanley Cups. I couldn't tell you how many he won. Maybe someone that's a little bit older than me could tell me, Bruno. But I don't have the stats in front of me. But yeah, Ken Dryden, he was amazing. And then obviously there was a bit of a transition there. Steve Penny was there for a little bit, and then the Patrick Waugh era started in '86, right?
There you go.
Patrick Waugh and Brian Hayward. But yeah, before I cut out, we were just talking about generational players. I was talking about Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby, Captain Canada, right?
Captain Canada, yeah.
He was that guy. Connor McDavid got a lot more. Notoriety because he's playing on a Canadian team. But when you watch him play, he does play at another level. But is he better than Sydney? I don't know. Like, Sydney's pretty damn amazing.
Sydney's got, what, 3 or 4 cups?
Yeah. So
at the end of the day, and I don't know if it's always fair, because Pittsburgh was a well-run organization that really built around them. The Oilers have fumbled for the last 15 years with 4 number 1 draft picks and just not having the right management and coaching staff in place. Because to me, it's the stability of the franchise that really dictates how far a team's going to go. But right now, I just get this feeling, right? They've got an amazing young head coach that the team is mirroring his persona, just steady, focused, task. They're not never too up, never too down. Even early in the playoffs, what they're guilty of is all those turnovers. They didn't panic, but they managed to correct that throughout the playoffs. I think it's a special team right now, and I don't hate on McDavid for not getting there yet. But I think we're going to need to see something here over the next couple of seasons. We need to see a dynasty, not a dynasty. Throw around words like dynasty. It's almost impossible to have a dynasty these days. But there's no excuse now for the Oilers not to capitalize on who they've got in that room.
I think the problem with the Oilers for the last number of years has been the instability at the coaching position. I mean, they've gone through more coaches than I went through underwears on my trip in my trip to Montreal this week. And then goaltending. Their goaltending has been shaky at best over the last number of years. And the problem with what happened in this playoffs is Skinner played well enough to keep his job. And that's tough because you got guys that win Stanley Cups that fall off the map the next year. And now we have a guy that got them right to the final game. And he sure did play well in some games. He played well enough that you're like, well, did we give up on him or do we go find someone else? And that's a tough position to be in because I don't know who else is out there, but they're gonna have to address some cap issues and all that. Yeah. But I just think they definitely have a great nucleus. This can galvanize a team. It sure galvanized Florida last year when they lost to the Golden Knights, and they come back and win.
It galvanized Golden Knights too because they lost before they got there. Trey right now is even talking about Crosby. He lost his first Cup final before winning 3.
And truthfully, I mean, even me, if I think about my first experience professionally in the CFL, we lost the Grey Cup at home in front of 78,000 fans in Edmonton to the Montreal Alouettes, and then we went back the next year and beat them in Regina. But I will say that the next year was a new year, and getting to that Grey Cup was a whole different adventure. It wasn't a foregone conclusion, and it was tough. That year we started 0-3. Our head coach almost lost his job. And then that was when there was that big blackout in Toronto. We turned it around after that. We went on a 6-game tear. And then next thing you know, we're playing our way into the playoffs for the Grey Cup. But that was what I'm saying is just because they lost this year and just because they got a great team and a great nucleus and they're galvanized and they really want to get there, man, it's a long road to get back there. Next year. It's an 82-game season. After a summer of regret over a 60-minute performance, right?
I'll tell you what, though, like you're talking about after you'd lost is what galvanized the room. Now, I didn't win a Grey Cup, but I did win. I did win the 1991 Saskatchewan Provincial Football Championship, and I swear the reason we won. Ask me the score. Well, I know. I'll tell you who we played. We played the Prince Albert Carleton Raiders. Mm-hmm. What was the score? I don't know. Yeah. We beat them twice during the regular season and then beat them again in the playoffs. The last game was the hardest game to win for sure. Yeah. Ask me what the reason that we won was. It's because we lost in the provincials the year before to Yorkton. Ask me the score of that. 15-13. We scored a touchdown with just seconds remaining, went for 2 to tie it up in the end zone. Our receiver was absolutely assaulted. And there's no flag because we're playing in Yorkton. The reason I bring that up, you remember that loss more than you remember the wins in a lot of cases. And that next year, it just burns in your sleep. It burns in your actions. It burns in somebody brings up to you, yeah, but great job, guys. That was really awesome. No, it wasn't, man. It was crap.
We lived that a few years, our 3 years that we played together in Calgary. We were so good. Yeah. couple of fumbles and interceptions and a couple of oh, you know what? Next year we're better.
Yeah.
And it just kept going. And look, 2012, we were one of the best teams. We were one of the best team in the CFL. We lost. We lost in the Grey Cup. We didn't even get off the bus, right? Like we were done by halftime, and everyone knew it. 2010, we hosted the Western Final. We had to bye to the playoffs, and we lose at home to the Riders, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you think, oh, we're going to get back next year, and one subtle change here. And you know what? That's the thing. They don't get rid of the stars, right? You don't get rid of your star quarterback. They're not getting rid of McDavid. They're not getting rid of Draisaitl. They're not getting rid of Hyman. But you know what? Maybe they might get rid of Henrique. Maybe they might get rid of Darnell Nurse. And those little tweaks to the chemistry, everyone watching the game judges players based on their performance, their goals, their assists, their ice time, and their salary, right? That's what you can quantify. But we don't know who is in the locker room. We don't know how they affect the guy. We don't know which guy is the bottom of the roster guy, but yet he really makes it fun for Connor McDavid to come to the locker room each week or each day. We don't know which guy that is. We don't know which glue guy might get released because his goals, his assists, his contract don't look attractive or don't fit what everybody else wants. And then you start tweaking with the chemistry. And then you don't know what you're going to get the next year. Now, listen, I played 11 seasons for the same team in the CFL. And down in my basement, I got every team picture. And for 11 years, my picture stays the same. And about 20, 30 guys change. And every year we had a team at the beginning of the year. It's like, this is our year. We came short last year, and this is our year. And in 11 seasons with the Stampeders, I have a cup in 2008. I have a cup in 2014. And I lost one in 2012. So in 11 seasons, I went there 3 times, right? But every year you think we did it. And the problem is, for lack of, and again, as much as I wanted the Oilers to win, this was a missed opportunity. And you don't know if they're getting back next year. You just don't know.
So we're just, and that's absolutely right. Like, and you see the team change. So right now, I just got a note coming in, and then Rubio says, "Am I the only one that hears nasty yelling and Chevy whispering?" So, Chevy, do you have the right mic going right now?
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I've got everything going.
Put your hand over the mic for 1 sec.
Hello.
Yeah, you're using your laptop mic, but that's all right.
Oh, how could that be? I hear it in my ears. Okay, let's see if I can fix it here.
So hopefully it's not too distracting to you guys out there. Yeah, I got the big booming microphone on. I'll move it a little further away. Hopefully, that's going to help a little bit. And hopefully next week, I won't let the cat out of the bag yet. But we're in talks with a producer right now. Somebody, a young guy that has got some technology training and knows a little something about media. That is looking at coming on and joining us soon. I think that's going to make a big difference in this too. But Darryl calls Chevy the football whisperer. Yeah, all good, boys. Okay, Craig Adams says we're good, so let's keep it on. Let's keep it on rolling. Yeah, but I'll tell you what. Like, I think that's the number one thing. It is so hard to get to any championship level, and whether you've played it or you've just watched it, whether it was high school, junior high, peewee, or whatever. Championships are so meaningful, but they're so hard. And I think this is just part of the Oilers' journey. If they've got the right people in place, I think the big thing for them is you got to keep Draisaitl. You got to find a way to keep Draisaitl. And then you've just got to find some motivated third and fourth liners. Like, you take a look at it too. We're talking Conn Smythe. But let's take a look at the fact that McDavid hadn't been scoring a lot. Those third and fourth lines, although through the playoffs they were quiet in terms of goals until the last few games, they were shut down lines. They learned to not commit the turnovers and not commit the mistakes. That's important too. You can't have a team just built around stars. You can't have a quarterback without an offensive line. You can't have an offensive line without a quarterback. But you can have a mediocre quarterback if you got some inside receivers that know how to find their openings and how to read zones and know how to get open, right? It's this really unique chemistry that you can't necessarily define until you see it happening.
Yeah.
And In terms of the Oilers, I think that's what we saw. Well, they went from a disaster start to the season to an amazing run. It's over now. And if I could be perfectly frank with you, Chev, like there's a side of me that's a little bit relieved that I don't have to continue watching hockey into July. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever get tired of just like the grind of following a team through the playoffs?
You know what? The playoffs is where I heat up in my interest level for the NHL. During the season, I don't follow it too much. And in a second here, I'm going to hang up and get back onto my mic because I did see that it's on my internal speakers. But I love playoff hockey. I love that I got to watch a nice Game 7 between Toronto and Boston. I got to watch a nice Game 7 here. Most of the series went long and deep in the playoffs. Not too many big overtime games. When I was a kid, we used to have the old 13 or 15 inch, maybe a little bit bigger, tube TV in my kitchen. We used to take it outside. I used to sit out with my dad. We watched Hockey Night in Canada, and I would love those like double, triple overtime games.
Yeah.
We'd just be sitting outside at 1, 2 in the morning and just watching a game. Me and my dad, I mean, he'd be having a beer, and I'd probably be having a pop or something. And just, gosh, I love those late overtime games. I was actually hoping for that yesterday. I was watching with my nieces in Montreal, and I was like, girls, someone's going to score. Edmonton. I believed that Edmonton was going to score, and we're going to have a nice late overtime game. I feel like I was kind of robbed of that.
Yeah.
So am I relieved it's over? Not really, because I really like this brand of hockey. I love how heated it gets. I don't think there's anything more intense than playoff hockey, because then you see the players playing each other night in, night out, and we get the classic matchups like we had, especially in this series. This series went the distance, and it was fun. The last series that we watched, Edmonton against Dallas, went the distance, and it was fun.
Yeah.
Every series that went to Game 7, I was on the edge of my seat, even if I didn't care which teams were there. I hate the 4-game sweeps. I feel like those are a waste of my time. But when you have playoff hockey like we did this year, I loved it. And, hats off to the Florida Panthers. The stat is, I think, 4 of the last 5 cups have gone to Florida, with Tampa Bay and Florida winning a bunch of cups. I think Tampa won 3, Florida wins 1, and I think right in there, Vegas won the cup last year. So, good for them. Edmonton got a great team. I think Flames fans are also a little sore because they are in a full rebuild mode. And, Edmonton can be, if we're looking at Tale of Two Cities, Edmonton can be excited because they have a great nucleus, as you mentioned right now, that's playoff tested, playoff ready. And Calgary, well, they're just getting excited about the draft.
And don't get me started on the draft. Don't even get me started on the draft. Everybody's talking about Taj McGinley.
Yeah.
Do we trade up to get him? Come on, guys. If you're trading up for a guy because of the last name on the back of his jersey, your team's run the wrong way.
Yeah.
I love Connie. I loved Connie. But, promoting him to GM, I think he's doing a pretty nice job, but we're just doing things kind of like mom and pop style, like Calgary's always done here. And it's frustrating because I am a Flames fan. They're the team that's here. I've been watching them since 2003 when I moved here. I've watched some exciting years. But it's getting, it's a little bit painful to see how they run. And the Oilers were the same thing or worse, right?
We're the same, right? In terms of who they hired for all their coaches and all that, right? The nepotism. If I'm Jerome McGinley, who works for the Flames, I tell his son, listen, kid, get as far from this organization as you can. Give him a chance to win a
Find your own path. Like even there, you talk about the hunger of losing a series. Don't step into your dad's old team.
Yeah.
Come there if they want you, and if they're the team that you want to join as a free agent when you're 25, right?
Yeah.
But go your own route, build your own thing. So, Chev, are you going to drop out and see if you can get that microphone going for our CFL talk here in a sec?
Yeah, I'm going to drop out for 1 second. Before we go CFL talk, we've got to talk. There was a question. Rubio said, if you had one day with the Stanley Cup.
I was just going to talk about. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Because Sam Bennett talked about it as a 6-year-old kid, him and his dad said, together they would eat a bowl of Captain Crunch cereal out of the Stanley Cup if he ever won it. And that's what he's going to go back to. So I'm going to drop out. I'm going to come back in, set up my mic. You can talk about what you're going to eat. And I'll join you right in a second here. So I'll just get it.
Yeah. So for me, and Rubio, that's a great question, right? Because it's one of those great trophies and great traditions where every player on the team gets it for a day to take back to their hometown and do whatever. Now, I think for me, what I would do is I think I would, if I won the Stanley Cup and I had it for a day, I would probably take it out in the summer to my trailer at Lake Koocanusa, where we've got a permanent spot, an amazing setup, tons of awesome people. I would bring as many of you guys that could make it out there. Daryl, Trey, Rob Evans, come on out to Koocanusa. Jamin, man, you've been saying you're going to be coming out there for years. We got to get you out there. And I would throw like the perfect party on the lake with the Stanley Cup. I would have it in the boat. I'd be going up and down all the different resorts and campsites and just trumpeting that thing and sharing it with as many people that wanted to see it, touch it, tell a story, get a picture with it. I would just take it to my happiest place on earth. Would I put food or drinks in it? I'm sure I'd figure something out. I don't know if we do Jamin's brisket or burnt ends in there. But a little champagne, maybe a little twisted teas or something like that as a summer drink out there. But I think if you have something like that, you just have to share it, because earning it, you know what it means to you. And so you also know what it means to all the people that are out there and just want to be a part of it. Like for me, and we talked about some of these free agent names and some of the guys, Sam Carrick's, and let me ask you this, Chef, who would you rather meet? Sam Carrick or that dude with the crazy white hair that travels around with the Stanley Cup?
Dude with the crazy white haired Stanley Cup, because he's got so many stories.
Yeah.
He's got all the stories.
Totally. He carries around the Holy Grail with him ever. In fact, when I was telling Daryl this earlier, one of the best pictures I ever saw was him posing with a Stanley Cup next to dude with the Grey Cup, which I had brought into town. I never won it, but I brought it in for a golf tournament once when we were hosting a charity golf tournament. And it was really neat to meet him and hear all the stories. But crazy dude with the white hair, that Daryl said he met at an airport one time and walking around the airport with a flowing white hair, carrying the Stanley Cup case around with him. What a job.
Yep.
What a character. What a Canadian story.
And that's the full-time job for both those guys. I agree with you. You want to bring it around. Again, I can relate it to the Grey Cup. When I won it in 2003, I was actually lucky to get it in Montreal because I was traveling back to Montreal, and Danny Machocha, who was the coach of the Alouettes at the time, of the Eskimos at the time, lives in my neighborhood. He was like right behind my parents' house, so he had the Grey Cup for the morning, and I got it for the afternoon. And I really wanted a low key thing, but my dad was so proud. He told the whole street, and everyone came by, and it was kind of
party.
Cool. Yeah, it was kind of that. It was a little bit. I'm pretty low key with that stuff. My dad, he was so proud. Like there was people just lined up coming into the house, and my dad was so excited. He offered everyone a beer or a glass of wine, and it was cool. The other times I won the Grey Cup, I still got to have it for a little bit. I brought it to my kids' school, all that. But if I was going to eat something special, and talking about Sam Bennett before I cut off and cut back in, and I do hope I sound a little bit better now. But
you sound great.
Oh, thank you. If I'm eating something out of the Grey Cup, and this one is for Rubio, you see what my shirt says?
Oh, now I see it. Chevy, your mic's just shut off. Chev, your mic's, we can't hear you. We can't hear you at all. But I'll fill in. You guys, somebody write in on YouTube. Can you guys hear Chev? Because I don't hear him at all. He just cut out. But I see poutine and I see 28 cents. And I know there's a story behind that. Nope, your mic is out. Yeah, Chev, no, nobody can hear you. What'd you hit? You leaned into your mic. Did you check that little on-off switch? I can see it right there. Yeah, so Chev, I look at your mic and you got this little on-off button right there. See that? No, on your mic. No, I can't hear you. On-off button. I have no idea what's it. Guys, I'll tell you, that's the thing about the ride. You never know what you're going to get when you join us on the ride. But I think I'm going to end. We've got a few more minutes here. Let's see if Chevy can figure it out. But now, since the NHL season is over and they've gone on to their off season, the guys get a chance to take a break. You know what? Even for myself, it's been sort of a long year. Some of you guys know, some of you guys don't know. There's been a couple things we've been dealing with as a family. And this weekend, I had a really, really good weekend. We had a chance. I'm a real estate photographer, and one of my clients says, "Hey, do you want to shoot a property for me out in the Crow's Nest Pass?" And for those of you guys that aren't from Alberta, the Crow's Nest Pass is just one of the mountain passes that gets you from the mainland to the west coast and out to the ocean. And it's about a 3-hour drive from here to where we're going. Oh, Chev's on. Chev, I was just about to tell a story. Do you mind if I finish the story?
I don't know what happened there. I just don't know what happened.
Your on-off button. But so anyway, I was just telling the story about how we're I was asked to do a real estate shoot 3 hours out of town, and usually I don't. And on the weekends, usually I don't do that. But I was like, you know what might be fun? I'm going to take my one boy couldn't come, but my oldest could. So we took this little road trip, Chev, and we drove from Calgary out to Blairmore, Alberta, by the Frank Slides. And I know some of you guys have definitely seen, been out there where know the story about where the mountain fell down in the coal mines in the early 1900s and wiped out an entire town. The Frank Slides is now a graveyard. And I took my oldest boy out there. We just had a road trip. And it was so neat just to spend, 2.5, 3 hours in the truck talking, telling stories. We were Googling on the way, okay, what are we going to do? We got out there 3 hours before the shoot. What are we going to do? We found this awesome little hiking trail in the Chinook Provincial Recreational Area. It's this little lake, Chinook Lake. And we went for this hike around the lake and met a lot of people, both from Canada and out of Canada. There's these falls that, the Chinook Falls, that we weren't able to find. But that just gives us more reason to go out there, because my boy was showing me the pictures of the falls. I really wanted to see it, but they make you work to find it, right? Because there's so many little trails. At the end, though, we're like Googling, well, after the shoot, where are we going to go to eat? And we looked like, okay, food reviews in this town of like 2,000 people. What's the best restaurants? And there's this little place called Ben Wong's Chinese Food. And there's these people from Ontario, all over Canada saying, oh my God, this is the best Chinese food in Canada, or at least in Alberta. And so we went and checked it out. And you know what, Chevy? I was impressed. It's
good.
It's good. Now I know, like in Calgary right now, it's almost hard to find Western Chinese food now. Right now, everything you eat is really authentic. The dim sum here is amazing. But it's things that move. The more authentic it gets, the more you have to acquire a taste for it. Right, like
but every little town in Alberta or in the prairies has a Chinese food restaurant. Has the Absolutely. One in the town. I've been to so many little towns, and I don't claim to be from here, but I did a lot of traveling to all little towns. You talk about Bentley and Oyen and all these spots in Alberta. Every time I've ever been to a town, there's been one little Chinese restaurant on the main drag. I haven't been to them. I just. Usually I eat in the hotel if I was there, but yeah, every town seems to have one. You grew up in the prairies. Tell me about this.
Well, and some are better than others, but like if you're Chinese back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, it was so hard to immigrate to Canada, right? That the only reason they got in here was to do the jobs nobody else wanted, right? Basement factories, working on the railroads. But once they were here, well, what am I going to do to survive? And a lot of them did open like the stereotypical little restaurants in small towns, because small towns was what drove Alberta and Saskatchewan. So yeah, you find them all over the place. But Ben Wong's, I'll tell you guys, if you're driving through the Crow's Nest Pass, you hit Blairmore just after the Frank Slides heading west, just detour. Go down and it'll take you to this little quaint little main street in Blairmore, Alberta, and you won't be disappointed. They had this probably 17-year-old local girl working as a hostess and waitress. She was so kind and so excited that you came to her restaurant. The owner of the restaurant was walking around making sure everybody was happy. And it was just your traditional, 3 entrees and you could choose between your steamed rice or your chicken fried rice. But like we got the deep fried prawns, which were massive. They were this big. The vegetables, I got the beef and mixed vegetables. The mushrooms were the size of golf balls. It was like everything was like locally grown fresh produce. It was like amazing.
It sounds pretty good.
Well, I think that's the thing. Sometimes when you're on a road trip, it's not about getting to the destination, which, you know me, I'm always in, okay, let's just get there. Nobody stops. We're not stopping to pee. Here's a bottle, pee in the bottle.
Is that what you did last week? Is that what you did last week on the show?
Dude, I did. That's what I did at the 27-minute mark of this show. It's just rewind it back. You'll see it. But it's so cool to actually take that time to stop and refresh. And I know some of you guys are really good at that kind of stuff. I'm not. I really enjoyed a road trip with my boy, stopping at this little legendary Chinese restaurant off the road, off the beaten path. And I was like super impressed.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
That's awesome. And for me, when I take a road trip, I am all about the journey. But I will say that if it's a journey I've been on before, I do like my typical spots. I like when I used to go to Edmonton regularly, I loved stopping in Gasoline Alley and hit the Donut Mill. That became my go-to. I blame my girlfriend Brittany for putting me onto the Donut Mill, because for the longest time I thought it was just this beat up, windmill that kind of stood on the side of the road. And one day,
are you talking Gasoline Alley in Red Deer? Yeah.
She's like, you got to go to Donut Mill. So I was like, wow, the Donut Mill, man. I got to tell you the story of going to the Donut Mill. I don't know if I'll tell it today, but it involved trying to only have one donut and then consuming 7 between walking from the store to my vehicle pretty much. But I love road trips. I love little mom and pop shops. I don't often take chances, like depending on what it is, but it's really cool when you find this place and then you want to share it with everyone. You want everyone to go to get their opinion. So I get the feeling you have, and I think that's really cool.
So we got the Donut Mill in Gasoline Alley, Red Deer.
Yep.
We've got Ben Wong's in Blairmore. Guys, give us some more places here, because I think what we're going to have to do, Chev, one of these days, I was so excited about this. We're just going to put it out there on a Tuesday, and we're all going to meet there on a Saturday. Anybody in Alberta or Idaho or Washington that can take a 5 or 8 hour road trip, just come on up there and we'll meet up and we'll try some good food.
This really is the ride tonight. It started with me in an airplane and then taking the show from the car, and we're talking about road trips and road food. Do we want to hit a little bit of CFL action before we sign off? It's 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock.
Oh, we're officially overtime.
Yeah, we're officially overtime. Overtime, baby. Come on, give it to me, Rubio. It's overtime, baby. Make sure, guys, first of all, we love that you're on with us. Tuesday night ride. We said we'd be here. Somehow I made it. A couple of technical issues, but I made it. Just CFL. Any surprises for you? If I look at the schedule last week, I landed in Montreal on Thursday morning. Got there Thursday morning. The Montreal sold out. This is Montreal's first sellout in years since since probably the Anthony Cavillo days.
Which they used to always sell out in Montreal.
They used to always sell out, and then they went on a dip. Right, the organization really went on a dip. But they hosted Ottawa, handily beat them 47-21.
Yeah.
Now Ottawa coming off a week where they beat the Blue Bombers. We were quite surprised, but now we're no longer surprised. We're no longer surprised because Winnipeg falls to 0-3 after losing to BC on Friday night. And that was a close one. And it seems like all the games in the CFL, except for maybe Montreal's games, are quite close because BC wins 26-24. Then you take it to Saturday. Edmonton loses on a last-second field goal from Liram Howard. Loses 39-36. But McLeod Bethel Thompson had a great game for the Eskimos.
I was able to watch that game. It looked great.
We'll get back to him in a second. And then for the third week in a row, Hamilton loses, and for the third week in a row, the Riders win, beating Hamilton. And again, I still have so much faith in Bo Levi Mitchell, but it looks like there's just some issues there. I want him to succeed.
You want him to succeed. You know who I want to succeed? Trevor Harris.
Yeah.
But it's playing out just like it always does. Trevor Harris hurt again.
Yep.
And I didn't get a chance to see this game. The Riders hung on. They won 36-20. I'd say they won rather handily. So in terms of Bo Levi Mitchell, maybe he's coming along, but he's got a ways to go. Like that, I didn't watch the game, but that score doesn't inspire confidence. But I'm really worried about the Riders. Who saw the Riders game? I don't even know the name of the backup right now.
Yeah.
It's not Fine, right?
No. They released Fine early on. The Riders backup, if I can get to it in 1 second here. Not Bo Levi Mitchell, but
Trey Smith saying Winnipeg's in 9-1-1 territory. Yeah, for sure.
Shea Parter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good old Shea Parter. Yeah. From where did he go to school? He went to that school down the road over there, right? Like, I have no idea who that guy is. Apparently, he did a nice job coming in and was able to keep up with Trevor Harris's a win. But it's a little nerve-wracking for the Riders right now if they are being built around Trevor Harris and he's not there.
Well, and that's what happened last year. It
happened in week 5 last year. It's happening in week 3
You know
this
what
year.
that happens? It gets coaches fired. Now,
Shea Patterson. Thanks, Trey.
Trevor Harris getting hurt gets coaches fired, right? Yeah. I don't think. I mean, listen, they're still 3-0, so they'll figure it out. Corey Mace is the darling of Regina right now.
They're saying he's the guy that turned around the culture in Regina after week 3. I'm a huge Corey Mace fan.
Yeah, no, me too.
But you know what Rider fans are going to be saying if they lose the next 3 with a backup quarterback? Corey Mace is worst coach ever. He's worse than Dickinson. We should have gone the other guy.
Corey who? Corey what? Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Your buddy AJ Willette is coming on. He had 20 carries for 98 yards. But I don't really want to talk stats. What I want to go back to, and I mentioned McLeod Bethel Thompson. He was the offensive player of the week. He had a great week again for Edmonton. But he comes out on Third Down Nation. Well, Third Down Nation is where I read it. I think he was on a podcast blasting the CFL for short game weeks. And I think that we'll end with this topic. We'll talk about this. Right. So basically, Edmonton has 3 short weeks this year, and they're the most of any team. And for those of you that kind of don't understand, a team has a 4-day cycle of prep. They have a day 1, day 2, day 3. Day 4 is a walkthrough, and then you have game day. And usually there's a day off in between. Sometimes 2 days. There's a film day and a day off, and then you start that 4-day cycle to the game to build up to the game. And Edmonton this year has 3 games where they're on a short week, which means they don't have the time off in between games, and they have probably 4 days between games to prepare. Yeah. We see that here in Calgary, or we saw that in Calgary when they would do the Labor Day game on a Monday, and then the rematch in Edmonton on a Friday. A few years back, they switched the rematch game to Saturday, and that's become the standard, citing player safety and those sorts of things. But he's complaining. He says that, you know what? He blasted the league. He said the league
he said that. Yeah, he said
the league lacks leadership. The league doesn't care about player safety. He's going to get a big fine for this. Now, would you agree with this? Because I'm just going to put my last 2 cents in this. When we had a short week, whenever we had a short week, you know what that meant? That meant we didn't have to practice a lot. And when you're a lineman, when you're on the line, you hate practicing. That's where your injuries happen. Yeah. That's where you get hurt. That's where guys that aren't playing are trying to make the team, going way harder than they have to. And when we had those short weeks, it was like, wow.
No pads, no shells, no nothing.
And two quick paychecks, too.
I will tell you this, based off the nature of the way that I played, though, I used to have it timed up perfectly, and it changed throughout the years. The game, if you had a game on Saturday, Sunday I could hardly move. Yeah. Monday was worse. Yeah. Tuesday, the bruises are starting to come out in all their fullness, and the colors are starting to leak out like this beautiful rainbow going across your arms and your legs. But I could always tell when the next game day was because the last week's bruises vanished the day before. Yeah. And so me, it was like the natural body cycle is you can recover from that kind of trauma in a week. When it came to the Labor Day rematch, I thought it was stupid. Like I was still bruised, but I played angry, right? Yeah. I liked being angry, and I like being, this sucks, this is stupid, but let's go where there's only one reason to go to Edmonton 4 days after a game, and is to beat the Eskimos. We lost most of the time because usually you lose the rubber match, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like it. I always thought it was stupid and pointless. However, you know what, Chef? I loved the no hitting that week. Yeah. It was almost like a bye week.
And that's the thing. The CFL has changed, right? Like from when you and I played, and obviously I played more recently than you, but it's still 7 years ago that I played my last game. Is that right? Seven, maybe 8 years ago now. 8 years ago I played my last game. There's way less hitting. Everything's off the table. Like they're already like pulling back. You know, they and I'm not saying, you know, I know people are really like, oh, CFL softer. No,
NFL's doing the same thing though, aren't they?
They are taking the hits off the body. When I showed up to Calgary, you know, we used to do 2-a-days, and with the crayons, they wanted us in pads hitting all the time. And then as time went by, even in Huff's early days in 2008, there was a way more emphasis on hitting, and then they backed off, and the Players Association advocated for the guys. And now it's gotten a lot less physical, but you know, it's evolved.
It's evolved. And back to his comments, like, you know, is it softer now than when we played? Yeah. Was it softer when we played than in the 80s? Yeah. Like the game's continually evolving, and I think it's a good thing because I don't think you need to hit that much. And to Bethel Thompson's point, yeah, I think it's sort of stupid to not have a minimum 5 to 6 days between games.
But I will make this point. If you're on a short week and it's a rubber match situation, like I do believe 2 of their short weeks are rubber matches where they play a home and home. That's more manageable because, listen, whatever a team throws at you in game one, between games, they're not going to reinvent their playbook. They might have a wrinkle here and there. We've always said that. We said that whenever we used to practice against a team. Yeah, expect this off of this play. Expect this, but you're not going to see anything you haven't seen. I think where there's a big issue is when you play one team and then you got a short week to prepare for another team. That becomes an issue because then it's really not a fair playing field because you got one team that's had enough time to game plan, prepare, and practice for a team that's coming off that short week. So I do see the lack of fairness there. But if you got two teams going on a home and home, usually that home and home series off a short week is followed by a nice rest.
Yeah. But even in the NFL has it. Like you play on a Sunday and then on Thursday. I don't think anybody's done the Monday to Thursday thing before.
Yeah.
But you know what it does? It actually just puts a little more pressure on the coaches and scouting. You've got to prepare 2 scouting reports that week and then top it off on the Sunday, right?
Yeah.
But like as you know, one of the things everybody thinks that half times you're up or you're down. It's all about the coaches coming in there and yelling at you. But it's not. I mean, half times are all about, okay, guys, this is what we expected. This is what they're doing. They've changed it up. And at the professional level, you can say, okay, every time they show this look, what they've done in the past is this. That's why we had our halfback crossover. This now what they're doing, we're just going to slide everybody over. You make these little minute adjustments. Everybody's a pro and can pick it up. That's where rookies hurt you because rookies sometimes kind of poop the bed a little bit when they're not ready. But I think mentally you can prepare for the short week. It just means the coaches have to put it in. Physically, I don't love it. I think those are the kind of body blows that can catch up to a guy and shorten your career and stuff over the years, or shorten your season, or make you less a weaker performance, depending on what happens. If you've had a couple of rough games in a short week, it might set you back a few weeks before you really get your body back in top form. Maybe not. I don't know. But I don't mind him speaking up. I don't mind him speaking up.
So the kickers spoke up a few weeks ago. The rule got changed, but they all got fined. So every kicker that so the league agreed to give them the option to choose the balls with the chips or not. And obviously none of them are using chip balls anymore because they all said they suck. But they all got fined. Every kicker that spoke on Twitter and stuff got fined. McLeod, he's getting fined, right? Like there's no doubt. He's gone against the social media policy. We still haven't figured out what's going on with Sean Lemon, right? He went from suspended to indefinitely to regular. We got to figure out what's going on there. I mean, I'm glad he's playing, but it is kind of odd, right? But like,
he appealed it.
Yeah, but did he win the appeal? Like, is the appeal still going on?
You just got to say appeal. Appeal. Okay, appeal? Everything stops, right?
And you just go back to work.
Yeah, go back to work until we figure out what our appeal process is. But, Chev, I think with that, though, let's quickly do our picks just to make sure that we keep this thing going.
Yeah. Where are we at? Can you tell me where we're at? Can you tell me where we're at
No,
with
I
our
can't
picks?
right now, but I think we'll pick that up next week.
We
We're
said
mailing that
last
one
week.
in. Last week,
We said that
we
last
had
week.
Red Blacks and Alouettes. I picked the Owls. I'm sure you picked the Owls.
Yeah, I picked the Owls for sure.
Lions and Bombers. I can't remember who I picked.
I think I picked the Bombers. That's my problem. I'm pretty sure I picked the Bombers.
I think I picked the Lions, but I can't remember because Kenny Lawler was hurt.
I think you did too.
Elks and Argonauts. I don't remember that one either.
I picked the Argos.
I've got it right here in my notes somewhere.
I picked the Argos. I know that.
And then Ticats and Rough Riders. I know you picked the Ticats.
I did pick the Ticats. I did pick the Ticats. So I'm still down. All right, so let's go this week.
Down.
Edmonton, BC. Is Edmonton finally going to win?
Oh no, I don't think so. It's in BC, right? I think they're getting close. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the Elk. They're a CFL team. They're a professional team again.
Yeah. But they're not winning.
This might be like Wally Bono and the BC Lions when they lost the first 6 games and came back and won the Grey Cup. They're trending in the right direction, but I think the Lions are just putting things together right now.
Yeah.
Here's the one for you though. On Friday, Alouettes.
Wait, who did we pick? Who did you pick? Did you write it down?
No. Well, you want? I got to write it down too.
Yeah, you're the guy with
Dude,
the
I'm
pen.
flying solo tonight, and now I've got to take the notes. Okay, here we go. We're gonna go
BC.
Chev, Nasty. You got BC. I got BC. You picked.
Yeah, I got BC too.
Okay, BC. Now you're just copying my picks.
No, I don't copy
Okay.
picks.
The next one, Alouettes, Argonauts.
I'm picking Montreal.
Yeah, I think I am too. That one though, I wouldn't be surprised if Argonauts find a way out because they're coming along. But yeah, we got to go with the Owls on that one.
Yeah, and
Wait, who did you pick? Did you pick the Lions or the Elks?
I picked the Lions. I picked Montreal.
Okay. Right. Bombers, Stampeders.
I'm going to pick the Stamps. Is this the week that the Bombers climb out of their hole?
They've got to at some point. I like everything I'm seeing out of the Stamps and Jake Mayer, considering the injuries and the problems that they've been having. But I'm going to go with Winnipeg on that one. I'll let you take the.
Calgary coming off a bye week, guys will get healthy. I'm not saying they're not getting Malik Harris back, but
No.
I think that they're going to have more time to prepare, more time to pounce. The Bombers are really
a team. I'm going to take Winnipeg just because I can't see them losing 4 in a row. And if they do, there's going to be some heads rolling there. Tiger Cats, Red Blacks.
I'm picking the Tiger Cats. I am going to pick the Tiger Cats until Bo Levi gets his first win. That's where I'm going with this one.
I'm going with you too. So you're going to get a chance to even it, bring it a little closer.
Yeah, and Sheldon, we got some good picks. We got some good talk tonight. I know it was a little bit scrappy with me going from the phone to the airport, but you know what? We brought it in. What I'd like to talk about, and Bruno asked us about this. I think next week we're going to talk about this because I don't think it's going to be solved this week. But the dwindling attendance in the CFL, it looks terrible on TV.
I do want to talk about that. I think I'm going to do a little bit of research on that. I know people are consuming sports differently, but you've got to fill butts and seats, and that's one. I'm going to throw that one out to Bruno. Bruno, you're going to have some insights on that too. You've seen it. You know more about sports and the business of sports than any one of us out here. I'd love to hear your take on it, Chev. I think right now, hour 20. I think it is time to start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'm going to say is Chris Wiggins. I don't even know if you're still there. I know you're watching on Facebook Live earlier. Just want to say, buddy, happy birthday. He's been a good listener. He doesn't always chime in, but I know he has been watching. Chris Wiggins, happy birthday. Guys, everyone else that joined us tonight, you don't know how good it made me feel when Chevy wasn't there and I was flying solo. I really appreciate it. Guys, thanks for joining us. Chevy, last word to you.
No, I just want to say thanks. I'm really glad I made it. Thank you for Porter Airlines for getting me here in time. Had a great, somewhat heavy week in Montreal, helping my sister move. And, we mentioned to our listeners in the fall, she had a tragedy, lost her husband before Christmas. So this was kind of helping her wrap up and move to a new home. So it was pretty heavy. So I'm really happy. One, my kids came to get me at the airport, so that was a really happy moment. And then 2, I got to do this, and it just took my head off the fatigue. It took my head off the heaviness that I kind of was going through this weekend. Being home was great, but it wasn't for a vacation. And yeah, just happy that we got to do this. Got to share some time with you, Sheldon. Got to share some time and some comments with everyone listening.
That's why we do it.
And it's going to be great. And we're going to have a great show next week. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to everyone being back here on the ride with us.
See you next week.